Hello and welcome to this second first look exploring session, our last session looking at Hercules Oetaeus, not by Seneca, probably. It's some people still might go with it as a genuinely Senecan thing, and certainly the person who translated this in 1566, John Studley, thought it was by Seneca, but it's one of two plays that are considerably less likely to be by the man himself. We've read the first three acts, and it was a challenge, but interestingly, where we'd sort of got to felt like almost the end of the play. It was quite strange. We got to the point where Hercules was dead and his wife was running off to commit suicide, and it felt like, oh, that's the end of the tragedy. That's it's all done with. But no, there's two more acts to go. So where will the plot take us? Who knows? Reading today, Philoctetes and the chorus is
Alan, based in Suffolk.
And reading Alcmena today is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author based in Romford.
And reading Nutrix and Hyllus today is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm a teacher, and I'm coming to you from California, USA.
And reading Hercules today is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will occasionally remind you what act we're in. So, without further ado, we will dive into Act 4. Act 4 is following on, I say, from the action doesn't really stop between acts. The chorus has sort of broken up between what happened at the end of Act 3, but has... in the very last line said, "Lo, it's Hercules that yells, 'tis Hercules I hear." Well, the last thing we heard about Hercules was it wasn't very well, so that might not be going well for Hercules. So Act 4, Hercules and chorus are on stage.
Retire, retire thy breathing breasts, O Titan blazing bright. Unfold thy misty mantle, black of dim and darksome night, and dash this dreary day wherein I, Hercules, must die. With blemish black of filthy fog defile the grisly sky, prevent my stepdame's naughty mind, now should I have resigned. O Father, my inheritance of Pluto's dungeon blind. Heaven frames should here and there be brast, and either pole should crack. Why sparest thou the stars and lettest thy Hercules go to wrack? Now, Jove, yoke round about the heavens, and if thou can espy, on giant heave the Thessal cliffs against the assaulted sky. Unburdened be Enceladus of hugy Ossir hill, and hurled be on Hercules the mighty mountains still. Proud Pluto shall unbar the gates of black and gloomy cave, yet maugre all their might, O Father Jove, I will thee save from fury of thy foes, and set thee up again in skies. Yet lo, Jove, lo, he that on earth thy thunder dint supplies, and for to be lieutenant of thy bolts on earth was born, is sent to burning limbo lake in torments to be torn. The stern Enceladus again in ramping rage shall rise, and hurl the weight that now doth crowd him down against the skies. Thus by my death they shall presume to conquer heaven all, but ere that day upon my corpse compel the heavens to fall. Break down the welkin that thou sufferest to decay.
O son of thunder, thumping Jove, no shadows do thee fray. Now Ossa, mount of Thessaly, shall Pelion hill down crush, and Athos piled on Pindus top his bushy head shall push. Among the starry skies thereby, above the craggy rocks, Typhoeus up shall climb and thump with store of battering knocks. Yarman stone in Tyrian sea, from thence eke shall be beat. The smoky forge of Etna mount, that glows with stewing heat. Enceladus not o'erthrown yet with the thunder crack, shall hew the mountain side in twain, and truss it on his back. The signs of heaven shall follow thee and go with thee to wrack.
I that returned from dens of death and Stygian stream defied, and ferried over Leith's lake, and dragged up, chained and tied, the triple-headed mastiff hound, when Titan's team did start, so at the ugly sight, that he fell almost from his cart. Even I, whose pith the kingdoms three of gods full well have known, lo, yet mine end I daunted am by death and overthrown. But yet no bloody blade against my rivid ribs doth crash. It is no rock that unto death my bruised bones doth pash, nor as it were with Ossir hill that cloven were in twain, nor with the sway of all the mountain falling am I slain. The glaring-eyed giant grim doth not now squeeze my course with pays of Pindus rock, and thus not felling enemies' force. I conquered am, and yet, alas, this coursey frets me more. O feeble force of man, he whom no might could match before, withouten any conquest made, doth end his latter day. Without exploit of or feat of arms, myself I pass away. O mighty umpire of the world, and all ye ghosts above, that witness how in quarrel good my right hand ever strove. O all ye lands, O earth, alas, may it your mercy please, to spoil the spiteful sting of death that daunts your Hercules. Fie, fie, what shame is it to us, what filthy fate we have. A woman proud shall boast her bane brought Hercules to his grave. Then what are they whose mortal maim Alcides' weapon gave, if thus with sway invincible my fatal wheel do run, and need must on this shameful rock my fatal twist be spun? As by a woman's cursed hand my body should thus be shed, yet Juno's malice might have poured this vengeance on my head. So might a woman's deadly hand have brought me to my bear, but pet a woman wielding sway amid the welkin clear. But this seemed overproud attempt for gods to take in hand the papless dame in Scythia born, where Pite on high doth stand, the apple tree whereon the under-propped poles do sway. It might as well have been her hap to take my breath away. What woman's might may master me, Queen Juno's hateful foe? Fie, stepdame, fie, the fouler shame by this to thee doth grow. Why dost thou triumph in this day? Why did Dame Tellus breed such parlous bugs, thy humour rank of colour hot to feed? A mortal woman's peevish spite doth pass thy rancour rough. Thou sayest thou cannot have revenge on Hercules enough. Then are we twain that pass thy power, the gods may blush for shame, to see their malice overmatched by such a mortal dame. Would God the ramping lion's paw that gnawed neem wood had filled his greedy munching jaws with plenty of my blood, or while the twinning snakes had hemmed me in by hundreds thick, why might not Hydra swallow up my wrenched body quick? Why was it not the centaur's hap my silly flesh to gnaw, or that I bound on Tantalus rock should gape with greedy jaw? In vain to catch the fleeting food when deep from Tartar soil, were at the gods agrised were, I did purloin the spoil. And from the dark infernal Styx I got again to light, Auditus dungeon, all the stops and stays I conquered quite. Death shrank from me in every place, that I, a noble knight, at length might end my days in shame and in dishonour spoiled. O Jove, the creatures terrible thou knowest that I have foiled. The threefold shapen mastiff cur, whom up I dragged in chain, he starting from the sunward could not hail me back again. The shepherd's churlish rabble that aloof in Iber be, under the Spanish fervent clime, could never master me, nor serpents twain that unto me in tender cradle crept. Aye, woe is me that valiant death so oft I overleapt. What honour shall I die withal?
Behold how death and hell cannot appall the virtuous mind, that of deserving well. My guiltless conscience warrant hath the death that doth him spoil, irks not as thus of such an one to take this filthy foil. If with this torment life were lost, his mind should much be eased, as with unwieldy giant sway he had his body squeezed. A Titan's burden with his monsters, all he would abide, or wish of raiding giants rent in pieces to have died. And if thy doleful death, because that monster none is left, who may be worthy thought, by whom Alcides' life be reft? At thine own hand to do the deed.
Ay me, and well away. What scorpion scrapes within my maw? What crawling crab, I say, with crooking clees to cumber me from scorching zone returns, and boat within my boiling bones the seething marrow burns. My river whilom rank of blood my rotting lungs it tores, and teareth them in shattered gubs and filthy withered floors. And now my gall is dried up, my burning liver glows. The stewing heat hath stilled away the blood, and Jove, he knows, my upper skin is scorched away, and thus the canker strong doth eat a hole that get it may my wretched limbs among. And from my frying ribs, alas, my liver quite is rent. It gnaws my flesh, devours all, my carcass quite is spent. It soaks into the empty bones, and out the juice it sucks. The bones by lumps drop off while it the joints asunder plucks. My corpulent carcass is consumed of Hercules every limb, yet stauncheth not the festering rot that feedeth fast on him. Oh, what a tingling ache it is that makes me thus to smart. Oh, bitter plague, oh, pestilence that grippeth to the heart. Lo, cities, lo, what now remains of Hercules the Great? Are these the arms that did with stripes the roaring lion beat? And in Nema wood did tear him from his beary case, that might this hand bend the bow from clouds the stinful fowl to chase? Are these the shanks that coped the hart, whose shifting pace full oft did bear his branched head, pranked with garland gay aloft? Was kelp craggy cliff of these my feeble clouches broke, to raise a dam in seas that did their foamy channel choke? Had these arms pith the breath of kings, of beasts and bugs to stop? Or might these shoulders tough the pace of heaven under prop? Are these the lusty limbs and neck that shrank not at the pace? Are these hands that I against the weltering heavens did raise? Alas, whose hands should now perforce from hence hell jailer lead? Alas, the noble courage erst that now in me is dead. Why call I Jove my father great, of whom my stock should rise? Why by the thunderer make I my challenge to the skies? Now, Amphitryo is my sire, all men may it avouch. Come out, thou murrian fowl, that dost within my bowels couch. Why dost thou thus with privy wound my careful carcass foil? What engulf under the frozen clime in savage Scythian soil engendered thee? What water hag did spawn thee on the shore, or stony calp rock in Spain that borders on the moor? Or irksome ill, and art thou not the serpent that doth sting, with crest on ugly head, or else some other loathly thing, or sprung of Hydra's blood, or left here by the hellic hound? Art thou no plague, and yet a plague in whom all plagues abound? What ghastly countenance carries thou, alas, yet let me know, what kind of mischief thou may be that dost torment me so? What salvage sore, or murrian strange, or uncouth plague thou be, with open combat face to face thou should encounter me. And now thus rankle in my flesh, nor soak into the sap, by sultring heat within my bones thy boiling bane to wrap, and in the mid thereof to fry the marrow that doth melt, my jagged skin is ripped, and out of my smoky bowels swelt. From burst and paunch myself do flee the skin with grasping paws, and from the naked bones do tear the mangled flesh by flaws. I search for thee through my maw, yet further dost thou creep, and festering farther in my flesh hast gnawn a hole more deep. O mischief matched to Hercules, what grief could make me greet? Whence flow these streaming trills of tears that down my cheeks do fleet? The time hath been no plunging pangs could cause our courage quail, that never use with crystal tears our anguish to bewail. Ah, fie, I am ashamed that I should learn these tears to shed, that Hercules in weeping wise his grief hath languished. Whoever saw it any day, in any time or place, all bitter brunts I bear with dry and eke unreeky face. The manhood that so many ills hath mastered heretofore, hath yielded only unto thee. To thee, thou canker sore, thou first of all hath strained the tears out of my weeping eyes. Thy gargle face, thy visage one, that doth me sore agrise. More tough then, mossy rocks, more hard than gads of sturdy steel, or roaming streams of Symplegady, whereby this smart I feel, hath crushed my cracking laws, and wrung the streaming tears from me. O wielder of the welkin swift, lo, lo, the earth doth see. How Hercules doth weep and wail, and to my greater pain, my stepdame Juno sees the same. Behold, behold again, my lungs do fry, the scorching heat prevaileth more and more. Whence fell this thunderbolt on me that burns in me so sore?
Who stoopeth not when Greece doth gall, more tough than aim of Thrace, was whilom haughty Hercules, and did no more give place. Then doth the marble axle tree, his limbs he now doth yield to painful pangs, and on his neck his aching head doth wield. And tossing still from side to side, he bends with hugy sway, and oft his noble heart doth force his trilling tears to stay.
And there we'll pause, because, massive word count from the dying Hercules there. So, yeah, I was saying, what more can the play give us after where we were last time? It can give us Hercules' death aria, part 1, because he's not quite there yet. So, yeah. It's not good for Hercules. I think it's fair to say Hercules is going through all the bad things that are going on there, and is not in a happy place. I think that's a reasonable assessment. Briony, did you want to leap in on Hercules' part?
Yeah, just something really random and small. I just noticed a really interesting word choice. Because I've only ever heard greet used to mean crying in Scottish vernacular. I've never come across it within, anywhere else. And it was, Hercules just said something about greeting meaning crying, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, off the top of my head, we've encountered it going way back in Dame Serith, and where the dog's eyes greet, and it may have popped up otherwise as well, but I can't think of other examples. But yeah, there's lots of interesting word choices all the way through all of this. Some of them are just sort of slightly distorted versions of words that we have in modern day that they're just slightly different spelling, and the pronunciation might be slightly different. But yeah. Other thoughts about Hercules' Death Aria Part 1? Occasionally broken up by the chorus to give Hercules a chance to take an in-breath. Lynn?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I like I was yesterday, the loaded language talking about Hercules' new mistress, and the fact that his wife wanted him dead and then said, no, I'll make him fall in love with me again. So just the sort of the spin is interesting. And the spin here is that, I'm Hercules, I'm the greatest hero ever. And now I've been defeated by a woman, and that's so humiliating. The Nemean lion couldn't kill me, and the two snakes couldn't kill me in my cradle, but my jealous wife has poisoned me, and that's just humiliating and awful. And I wonder if that's the Roman author, or if that spin has been created or perhaps amplified by the translator.
Yeah, I mean it's quite difficult to be feeling with Hercules, because we haven't met Hercules very much. He came on and made a massive speech at the beginning of the play, and then is basically absent, and now he turns up dying. And so it's quite hard. Like, there's not a journey with us for Hercules in this, of going, we've gone from, we felt it, and then he does make some points that you're sort of going, yeah, you're not okay, you're dying, I'm going to give you a break, but Lynn.
Yeah, and the other thing is, in the Greek tradition, Heracles is really quite an ambiguous. I mean, he's great. He's just sort of extreme. He has extreme appetites. He has extreme behavior, but he's not morally good or morally bad. But this seems to want to spin him as a hero, as I've always fought on the right side. I can't remember exactly, but my cause has always been right, and I'm a hero, and all the things I've defeated have been evil. And that's actually not necessarily true in the Greek tradition. I mean, after all, Herc, you murdered your family.
Yeah.
You murdered your first wife and all your children. Remember that? He's not always the good guy, but this seems concerned to make him the good guy, the death of a hero.
Briony.
Yeah, it's not it's not very well formulated. It's quite repetitive. He doesn't just systematically describe in detail each thing. He kind of repeating himself, which is not. It doesn't give him that much credibility, I guess, unless it's supposed to be because he really is like dying. I don't know, and he's rambling. But
Elizabeth and Alan.
Yeah, I was just wanted to agree with what Lynn said and with what Briony said. I got a sense that, like, if it hurts that much, would you be talking this much about it? It's like, and then the more that's like opened up by the pain is like dissolving, and it's like okay, he's proselytizing. He's going a bit too far with his description of his injuries, that we almost we don't believe him, but we don't feel sorry for him. And I feel like we should feel sorry for Hercules at this point in the narrative, but we don't.
Alan.
Yeah, I mean, it just struck me that the author or the translator, whichever, has definitely gone OTT on the butcher's shop approach to this. It really is somewhat OTT.
In fact, we haven't had enough OTT-ness from Seneca of late, actually. I mean, when we first started reading it, it was, entrails sizzling on fires. It was really, really going into the detail of the blood and the gore. And it's got a bit PG of late, actually. So, in a sense, I feel like it's trying to claw back to what the franchise is all about.
That's what we paid for.
Yes, well, you come to a Seneca, you come for excessive descriptions of gore. That's what you're here for. Plus, possibly a mixture of stoical acceptance of awfulness of things. So yeah. Anyway, let's go. Hercules still not dead. Briony, whether it kills Briony in the process, we shall see. But they're after a reasonably hefty speech, there will be some interlocuting going on as we have the entrance of Alcmena to the room.
O Father, with thy heavenly eyes, behold my wretched plight. For never Hercules till now did crave thy hand of might. Not when, as Hydra's fruitful heads, about my limbs were wound, nor when I locked in lakes alow, fought with the infernal hound, These hideous fiends I foiled with kings and tyrants proud likewise, yet in these broils I never looked for succour to the skies. This hand did still avouch the vow, no thunder for my sake did glitter in the holy heavens. This day hath hid me make some suit to thee, and of my boons yet here the first and last. One only thunderbolt I crave at me, O Jove, to cast. Count me a giant of myself, I can no less devise. While Jove I thought of promise true, I spared the starry skies. Be thou either a cruel sire, or pity if thou have, yet lend thy son thy help, and get the glory of my grave. Preventing this my dreary death, of this if thou do scorn, or that thy hand abhor the guilt from Sicil cliffs aborn. The sultring giants that in hand high Pindus mount can wield, or Ossa that it hurled on me, I may therewith bequild. Brast up hell gates, and let Bellone scourge me with iron rod, and let in arms encounter me the mighty martial god. My brother, I acknowledge him, but by my stepdame's side, and Pallas, thou my sister take, let at thy brother slide a thurling dart. O stepdame mine, with humble suit I crave, a wound of thee that woman's hand may bring me to the grave. Why dost thou feed thy fury now, as one whose wrath will end? And satisfied, what seek ye more? I stoop, I yield, I bend. Thou seest Alcides humbly laid, whereas unto this day, that ever I entreated thee, no land, no beast can say. Now do I need thy deadly wrath to rid me of my pain. And now thy rancour is appeased, thy hate is quenched again. And thus thou sparest me my life, when as I wish to die, O earth, will none make me the fire wherein my bones may fry? Nor reach a blade to Hercules, convey ye all from me, so let no country monster breed. So let no country monsters breed when I shall buried be, and let none wail the loss of me if monsters more arise. God send another Hercules to succour earth and skies. But as for me, on every side, ding out my bruised brain, and crash with sturdy stroke of stones my cursed skull in twain, and rid my torments, wilt thou not, O world to me unkind? And are so soon our benefits forgotten in thy mind? E'en to this bower with bugs and beasts thou had been overlaid. Had not I been, good people, cause his torments to be stayed? That succoured you, time gives you leave to recompense my pain. If ye with death will guerdon me, I ask none other gain.
Where shall I, wretched mother of Alcides, wish to be? Where is my child? Where is my son? If sight deceive not me, with gasping mouth and panting heart, lo, where he sprawling lies. Where, as, alas, in raging heart of boiling fits he fries. He groans, all is dispatched. Dear child, let me Alcides mine. Embrace thy pining limbs, with kiss enfold my arms in thine. Where are the limbs? Where is the neck that bare the skies alone? Where, what thus hath mangled thee, that all thy corpse is waste and gone?
I am your Hercules, mother dear, whom thus ye see here lost. Acknowledge me all, though God knows I seem but as a ghost. Why do you turn your face away, and mourning visage mild? Are ye ashamed that Hercules should counted be your child?
What world hath bred this uncouth bug? What land engendered it? Or else what monstrous mischief may on thee triumphing sit? Who is that conquers Hercules?
By treason of his wife, thou seest how wretched Hercules do lease his loathed life.
To overthrow my Hercules, what treason hath the might?
That which a wrathful dame doth seek to ease her of her spite.
How hath this pestilence gotten to thy limbs and bleeding bones?
Into a shirt the woman had conveyed it for the nonce.
Where is the shirt? For nothing but thy naked corpse I see.
The vesture by the poison rank devoured is with me.
And can such poison be contrived?
I think within my guts that hideous hydra, hissing snake, his sloughy body puts. 1,000 plagues of learner pool within my bowels ramps. What raging deer is this that drives up all Sicilia damps? What clime of hell forbids the day to pass the boiling Rhone? O mares amid the greedy gulfs and pools let me be thrown. What Ister can my carcass cool? No, not the ocean main. Of these my stewing vapours may the raging quench again. All moisture of my limbs in these my fits are fried away. The juice will soon be soaked up. What president of hell, let me return from underground again with Jove to dwell. He ought to have retained me still. Receive me once again into thy dungeon dark, that hell may in this pickle plain. Behold the man that conquered it. No booty bring I will. Away with me. Why dost thou quake for fear of Hercules still? Set on me death courageously, for now I may be killed.
Now stint thy tender tears that down thy cheek so long have trilled, and master this thy malady, compel thy sorrow stoop, and show that in these plunging pangs Alcides did not droop, and as it hath been erst thy guise, force death and hell to shrink.
If ugly grizzled Caucasus in chain of iron link should bind me as a groaning prey, the greedy gripe to feed, yet from mine eyes it should not strain a broken tear indeed. If wandering Symplegades would me wish either rock assail, to bide the brunt of double rack, my courage would not quail. Let Pindus tumbled be on me, huge Emus let me have, or Athos rock in Thracian seas that breaks the weltering wave, and bode the bolts of thundering Jove, although the unwieldy mass of all the world should fall on me, and might be brought to pass, that Phoebus' flaming apple tree should burn upon my grave, no uncouth cry should force the mind of Hercules thus to rave. Let meet 1,000 savage beasts.
Sausage beast.
So sorry. Let meet 1,000 savage beasts and rent me all at once. Let stimful fowls with howling haws lay stroke upon my bones, or scowling bull on the other side strike on with head and horn, or else of other serpents wild let all my parts be torn. With roaring earthquakes, huey lumps be puffed upon me. With griping grief let all my limbs to nothing pined be. Although I be to powder crushed, I will with patience peace, in spite of beasts or bruising blows, my sighs and tears shall cease.
It is not, son, the woman's bane that in thy bones doth boil, but festering tears and bruising knocks of thy continual toil. The wrenches old, with aching pangs, begin to smart anew.
Oh, where is death? Where is he now? Of all that I do rue, can any witness what it is? Let death now bend his bow. A naked hand is strong enough to make me stoop full low. Let any wight in all the world attempt to set on me. I warrant him. Approach, let him.
Ah, wretched might I be, this wayward agony hath take his perfect wits away, have hence his tools, and eke his shafts for danger hence convey. His ruddy gills that glow like fire some mischief do pretend, to shroud myself, alas, into what corner shall I wend? This malady a frenzy is, this only is the mean, to conquer Hercules, why then do I as doting queen thus fall to tears and seek to shrink? May be that he will have Alcmena's hand to give the stroke to bring him to the grave. But die he in a Murrain's name, ere I for coward will such deadly penance be enjoined, that on my doing still His heinous hand may vaunt itself, know how the pangs fall deep, with struggling ceased do bind the purple veins with deadly sleep, and beating sore lift up and down his faint and panting breast. If I, O gods, of this my noble child be dispossessed, be gracious yet, and for the world some lusty champion save. Rid his annoy, and let his limbs again their courage have.
And they're joined by Hyllus.
Oh, dismal day, oh, anguish, oh, the heaper up of ill. Jove's son is slain, his daughter dies, his nephew liveth still. First, by the stepdame's treason is the son to ruin brought, the daughter likewise trapped in trains and thereby come to naught. What hoary head in change of tunes or tenor of his age hath seen that fortune's frowning face has stirred such stormy rage? One doleful day bereaveth me, alas, of parents twain. But lest I speak to spite the gods, I will somewhat refrain. I lost a father, Hercules. This only I complain.
O noble imp of Hercules, alas, my nephew dear, that dost of wretched Alcmena's son the lively feature bear. Refrain my chilled thy wailing words, this quiet sleep perhap will overcome these plonging fits, but lo, in my lap, he doth begin to strive again, his fits begin afresh, sleep giving up the feeble ghost to rankle in the flesh.
What meaneth Trachin craggy crest to show before mine eyes? Or now, forsaking man, am I advanced above the skies? Why do the heavens provide for me? The father Jove I see, and eke my stepdame Juno dire, appeased now with me. What heavenly harmony is this that soundeth in my ear? Dame Juno calls me son-in-law, I see the palace clear, of crystal skies and beaten rakes of Phoebus' flaming wheel. I see the dumpish moory den of gloaming lady night. Here he commandeth darkness dim to show itself in sight. What meaneth this? Who is it that the heavens against me spars? Am I thus, O father mine, brought down again from stars? Even now Apollo's sultring car did fume about my face, so nigh I passed the pinch of death, lo, tracking top in place. Who brought me back to ground again? Beneath me erst it lay, and all the world was under me. Thou smart wert worn away. Thou forcest me confess the same. Ah, mercy, mercy now. Instead of father vengeance, do these humble words allow. Lo, Hyllus, lo, thy mother's gift, such presents she prepared. Ah, might my truncheon punch her puddings once, as whildom fared. The haughty lady Amazon, well trounced for her pride, on the edge of icy Caucasus affront the mountainside. O noble lady Megara, where were thou my wretched wife, when wrapped in rage of frantic fits I wrest thee of thy life? Give me by bat and bow in hand, my rests I will imbrue, and force ye all your brags on me with blemish black to rue. Thus let Hercules' exploits a woman be the last.
Forbear, O sire, thy hateful threats. She hath it, all is past. The vengeance that ye seek on her already hath her sped. With wound received at your hand, my mother lieth dead.
Oh, blinded anguish! Die she should of Hercules' furious hand. Thus Lycus hath his marrow lost, the heat of burning breast, will have me on the breathless course for to revenge the rest. Why doth she not yet feel her force? Both let her want a grave, and on her cursed flesh to feed let beasts her carcass have.
The silly woman was more woe than ye that bide the smart. Ye will release some part hereof for pity of your heart. For grief of you, with her own hand, alas, herself she slew. Thus more than ye do ask of her, she doth her doing rue. Yet it is not your wife's misdeed that brought you to this plight. No, nor my mother's traitorous hand hath wrought this deep deceit. This treason Nessus did contrive, whom he did pay his hire, with arrows shot into his ribs, for rape of Deanire. Thus, father, with the centaur's blood, your shirt was sore imbrued, and Nessus' hand the vengeance of your deed thus ye have rued.
He hath his will, all is dispatched, our fates themselves display. This is the day of death to me, thus erst to me did say. A charmed oak, and all the wood that range with yetling noise of Parnass hill the temple shook, and thundered out his voice. The dead man's hand, whom thou before hast slain, O Hercules, shall murder thee again. Thou having mopped the space of gulf and ground, and death of hell, here shall thou be confound. I therefore do bewail no more, such should our ending be, that Hercules, conquered after him, no man alive may see. Now let me die a manly death, a stout and excellent, and meet for me this noble day shall valiantly be spent. Fell all the timber on the ground, hew down all Eta wood, let coals devour Hercules, let fire fry his blood. But ere I die, thou noble imp of Paeon's royal race, this doleful duty do for me, see that a whole day space my funeral fire flaming burn, and now my tender hill, the last petition of my mouth make unto thee I will. Among the captive ladies, one there is a noble dame, of royal blood, Eurytus' child, Iole is her name. Accept her to thy spousal bed, whom victor I unkind have trained from her native home, and but my heart and mind. Poor silly maid, I gave her naught, and now she shall me lose, though thus the wretched woman wails her still increasing woes. But let her foster that she hath conceived as Jove's ally, and child to me, be it thine by her that erst begot have I. And as for thee, dear mother mine, your dreary dole forego. Your Hercules shall live, do not vain tears on him bestow. My manhood made a strumpet thought a stepdame unto thee. But if that either Hercules' birth shew her unsure to be, or be a man my sire, or else be falsified my kin, now let Jove's tuggling cease, and let my mother's slander Lynn. I have deserved a father well, that have advanced so high. The glory of the rolling heavens of nature framed was I, to work the wondrous praise of Jove, and Jove himself doth joy to have the name of Hercules, begetting such a boy. But pardon now my strained tears, but you, as Jove his niece, shall as a stately matron be among the dames of Greece. Though Juno with the thunderer in spousal chamber lies, and in her heavenly hand doth wield the sceptre of the skies, whenever bare she such a babe, and yet, though heaven she hold, in heart against a mortal man she fosters malice old. For spite that born of woman's womb be counted thus I should. Go, Titan, go, run out thy race, thee only I forsake. I that went with thee foot by foot, now to the infernal lake. And ghosts, I go yet with this praise, Touch pit down will I pass, that Hercules of open foe yet never foiled was, but he in open combats brought his conquests all to pass.
O Titan crowned with blazing bush, whose morning moistures make the moon her foamy bridle from her tired team to take, declare to the easterlings, whereas the ruddy morn doth rise, declare unto the Irishmen aloof at western skies, make known unto the Moors anointed by flaming axen tree, those that with icy wane of Archus pestilence be. Display to these that Hercules the eternal ghost is gone, and to the bawling Mastu's den from whence returneth none. With dusty damp of filthy fog, O Titan, choke thy blaze with lowering light of one-y globe on woeful worldlings' gaze. And let thy head be muffled up with clouds and darkness dim, for Hercules' sake, when thou shalt find, or where with the like to him. O wretched world, to whom wilt thou henceforth thy woes complain, if any scattering pestilence on earth shall be renewed, by venom rank, from poisoned mouth of scaly dragon spewed, if any boar of Arcady shall combat all of wood, and tear the traveller's flesh with tusk imbrued in gory blood, if any champion rough of Thrace, with heart more hard in breast than are the icy rocks, whereas the frozen bear doth rest, shall trample thick his stables foul with blood of slaughtered men, when people quake for fear of war, who shall assist them then? If wrathful gods for vengeance will some monsters to be bred, lo now enfeebled all of force, his carcass lieth dead, whom nature's mould hath made a match to thundering Jove in strength. Hail out, alas, and let your plaint be heard to towns at length. Let women beat their naked arms and wring their trembling hands, untruss their hair, and from their locks pluck off their binding bands. Bolt up and lock the temple gates of gods, and ope be none, but desperate Juno's chapel doors. O Hercules, thou art gone to Lethe's lake, and stream of Styx, from whence no keel again shall bring thee back. O seely soul, thou goest to remain among the grisly goblins grim, from whence thou whilom came. Triumph sooner daunted death, and conquest of the same. With ghastly face and carrion arms, and neck that yields to weight, thy ghost returns, but Charon's boat then shall not have her freight. As ballast with thine only pays, and yet shalt thou not bide among the rascal sprites, but sit on bench by Aeacus' side, and with the judges twain of Crete as umpire there to be, appointing pains to souls that may to their deserts agree. From slaughter hold your guiltless hands, bathe not your blades in blood. Ye states that bear high sail on earth and float in worldly good, it merits praise a maiden sword unclipped in gore to bear, and while thou reign, to keep thy realm from cruel doings clear. But virtue hath the privilege to pass unto the skies, to the top of frozen apple tree. O Hercules, wilt thou rise? Or where the sun with scorching blaze his burning beams doth rest? Or wilt thou be a shining star amid the lukewarm west? O Calpe rock is heard with roaring noise of wrestling wave. What place amid the azure sky intendest thou to have? What place shall be in all the heavens from early birdie free, when Hercules amid the stars shall entertained be? Let Jove appoint thy bidding from the ugly lion far, burning crab, lest thou with grisly countenance do them scar, and make the trembling stars in heaven for fear to break away, and Titan quake, while spring doth prank with flowers ye tender spray. Then hasty winter strip the trees of all their branches green, or sudden summer decked with leaves in bushy woods be seen. And from the trees as apples fall, the harvest being done, no age on earth shall wipe away the fame that thou hast won. As far as sun or stars can shine, thy glorious name shall go. Amid the bottom of the sea, first corn shall sprout and grow. Brackish seas his waters salt to water fresh shall change, and fixed star of icy bear from clime to clime shall range, and sink into the frozen pool against his kindly sway, ere people cease the honour of thy triumphs to display. O sovereign Jove, we wretched wights the boon of thee do crave. No monstrous beasts, no noisome plagues, hereafter let us have. With bloody champions let the earth encumbered be no more. Cast down the haughty sway of courts, if aught annoyance sore shall cloy the earth. A champion to be our shield we cave, whom as an honour of the crown his rueful realm may have, that still will keep his sword from being tainted with guiltless blood. Lo, what means this rumbling noise? Lo, Hercules' sire doth groan, and sighs for his son. Is it the gods that wail and moan? Or is it Juno's fearful shriek, whom Hercules doth apprise, that seeing him for fear she roars and runneth from the skies? Or else did Paphos' faltering feet with feeble stirring stumble, and shrinking from his tottering weight, thus force the gods to rumble? Or scared he the wailing ghosts, the which to fear he drave? Or Cerberus breast with jingling chains, with Bustum in its cave? 'Tis not so, but lo, where Philoctetes doth appear, and Hercules' famous shafts to him bequeathed doth he bear.
And once again, chorus bridging the gap between the scenes there. So Hercules is dead. Definitely dead. He's definitely dead. We're not seeing Hercules again. Definitely not seeing Hercules again.
Are you sure?
Yeah, certain. He's definitely dead this time. Definitely deaded. Yeah, we got more I'm dying action in conversation this time with Alcmena and Hyllus as well popping in, and you know everyone's very sad. Thoughts, Briony then Alan.
I just love the bit when his mum's like, he's dead, and then, oh no, wait, no, he's moving again. No, he's not quite dead. Just perfect.
Yeah, Alan.
Yeah, just reminded me of Grand Opera, you know, death aria in 17 verses and 3 encores.
Does feel quite operatic, doesn't it? You know, it does feel that it should be an oratorio or something.
You're almost expecting, you know, someone coming on, where, kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit.
I wasn't quite going down that route, but yes, but yeah, it does have that sort of quality to it of bring on the tenor and let him rip. Other thoughts? I mean, there were a few moments where the text seems to either not age well or just sort of dipped into bathos rather than pathos at times. There were a couple of lines and I was sort of going, yeah, that's not landing for me desperately well. Even before we started worrying about the sausage beasts
and the chilled child.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, at least this time it was sausage rather than salvage.
Yes.
Which was the problem yesterday.
Yeah, there are a few typos in the script that have led to the odd tripping up here. We have struggled getting these texts together. But yeah, then we get a line like, might my truncheon punch her puddings once. I mean, it's just... I think it's accurate. I don't think that's an OCR thing. It's just such a weird line.
Still couldn't trust the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, Briony.
Just probably the worst chat line I've ever heard in my life.
So some issues. There are some issues here with this. I mean, beyond the ones that we've been sort of generally noting. But there's some interesting. I like the the rumbling noise of God there, as the noting the death of his son, and it's feels like there is something going on here, and we're about to be introduced to more characters. Lynn,
we were talking a moment ago about how Hercules, he's dead. No, he's dead. No, is he dead? He's almost dead. Oh, he's dead. It's just like, he's been dying for 4 acts now. And I just can't help noticing a kind of contrast between that and the reporting of Deianira's death. It's just like she runs off at the end of Act 3 or even earlier. And then at one point, Hercules finally gets around to saying, I'm going to get revenge on my wife. And his son comes on and says, oh, she's already dead. And that's pretty much it. It was really, the reporting of her death was really quite brief, especially compared to Hercules' rather protracted agony.
Yes, it does suggest a certain social scale that's being promoted here. That let's listen to Hercules. Hercules, yeah, Hercules. Everybody else, anybody else, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, Act 1, Hercules says how great he is. Act 2, let's kill Hercules. Act 3, we're killing Hercules. Act 4, Hercules is. He's dying. He's dying at great length. Act 5. I mean, where's the story going to go now? Beyond Hercules is dead.
It might not go beyond it.
Yeah. It's the structure of the cherry orchard, isn't it? Basically, we might need to sell the cherry orchard. We're probably going to sell the cherry orchard. We're selling the cherry orchard. We've sold the cherry orchard. It's that sort of thing, just with fewer Russians. Briony.
I think because of what's involved in this text, it's for me, it's only this beautiful imagery that's keeping me interested. And then because we've just done Act 4, so imagery can only get you so far, but that truncheon pudding line has got me interested again. I want to see what else they've got to throw at us within this.
Yeah, I have to say there is a real curiosity factor with these Senecan translations where sometimes they really strive for effect, and sometimes they get it, and sometimes they just fly somewhere random, and it's trying too hard sometimes. Alan,
I was also intrigued by the mention of the Irish in there, which I don't think would have been known to the ancient Roman author.
I imagine it's something to do with ire, or something along those lines. Or just a straightforward typo. Lynn.
Oh, I assumed it was from Ireland to North Africa, the Irish and the Moors. That's the whole world, right? That's it. That's
Oh, right. So it might be an early modern addition, because you're right. I'd be surprised if that was in the original.
Oh yeah, right. But it's the translator's concept of the whole world is from Ireland to North Africa.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's find out what delights Act 5 have in store. Hercules gets to have a break, being dead. And Act 5, it's Nutrix and Philoctetes.
Of Hercules' most heavy haps, good young man, make report. How did he bear it at his death?
In such a cheerful sort as no man lives.
And could he, with so sweet and merry look, the scorching pangs and torments of his ending fire brook?
That there was any heat at all, his face did not bewray, who provided that power might force all things to stoop and to obey, that under sun untamed be.
Where did the noble knight, among the wrestling waves of sea, display his matchless might?
That mischief which, all only yet the world knew not before, even fire hath been conquered as beasts, and monsters more. Among the toils of Hercules, the fire is crept in.
Declare us how the flaming force of fire could he win?
As soon as he with smarting hand the eater hill had gripped, and forthwith from ye branched beach ye shrinking shade was wiped, and felled from the stump it lies, a pine tree hard he bends, that crakes the clouds, and down from skies his haughty head he sends. The rock did totter, ready for to reel, and with the sway it tumbleth down, a little grove with all it bears away. A spreading oak of Chaon big, whose leaves did ever rush, and dimmed the sun, and did beyond the woods his branches push. It being hewed doth crack, and eke in twain the wedges naps. The steel starts back, and thus the tool of iron bides the raps, and flies out of the log. At length at roar it shogged and shook, and falling down full lithely the overthrow it took. Forthwith the place lost all its light. The birds scared from their nest, do soar above the cropped wood, and holes wherein to rest, and chirping with their weary wings about the plot they flicker. In every tree the ringing strokes were multiplied. The holy oaks in hugy hand the iron axe did feel, No timber on the stallen stocks might scape the hewing steel. Thus all the wood upon a pile is heaped, and one by one the logs are laid as high as heaven, that Hercules thereon might have a narrow room, his burning bones for to bestow. On pine tree top and toughest oak the fire begins to glow, and on the stumped willow flameth, and thus the forest wide doth make the kill. The poplar wood all Hercules' blocks doth hide, but as the puissant lion, when his fits do vex him sore, lies wallowing on his back, and through the flourish loud doth roar, so fareth he, who would not thought he had to burning gone, as one that climbs to heaven, not fire he was to look upon. When up he stepped on Oeta mount, and gazed on his kill, being laid aloft, he brake the block, so heavy was he still. The shives yet could not bear his weight. He, for calling for his bow, did say to me, have Philoctetes, on thee I it bestow. The same it is that Hydra with his swarming heads did know. This did fetch down the stimful fowls, and all that we have daunt. Go thou with this let victory, and happiness thee haunt. For never shalt thou shoot against thy foes with thee but speed. If at his bird amid the clouds thou aim, she dies indeed. These certain shafts shall bring thy mark down from the azure sky. This bow shall not deceive thy hand, for oft I did it try, and made it to meet to bear a shaft, and cast his level dew. Thine arrows shall not fail thine arm, if thou that knocked true. I ask but only of this, put fire to the stack, bestow on me my funeral flame to bring me to my rack. This gnarly club, quoth he, the which no hand shall ever toss, shall only with his Hercules in fire go to loss. This also, quoth he, shouldst thou have, if thou couldst wield the same. Beside his master left him lie, to help towards the flame. And then beside him down he lays the lion's hairy skin, to burn with him. The shaggy case held all the pile within. The people sobbed, and none there was but sorrow strained his tears. The mother mad for eager grief, whose breast all bare she bears, and naked down to the navel stead displays her tender teats, and languishing with ringed hands her naked dug she beats, and crieth out upon the gods, on Jove himself she calls, her shrieking rage through all the place, so woman-like she yells. Be still, quoth he, good mother, force your showers of tears to cease. Your dreary dole disgraces much the death of Hercules. Wail secretly unto yourself, why make ye Juno glad, to see that you a weeping day with store of tears have had? Doth it good to see her boards stand with weeping eyes? Forbear your malady, 'tis deadly sin for ye, to tear the teats and rend the womb that first did foster me. And as he blustered, giving grunts, when erst he led in chain the hound about the towns of Greece, what time he came again, triumphing over conquered hell, defying Pluto's might and dreadful destiny. So on the fire he lay upright. What conqueror ever sat in coach with such a cheerful grace? What tyrant did control his folk by law with such a face? Who hushed was all thing at his death, himself he could not weep, and also we had clean forgot the wound of sorrow deep. None doth lament him at his death, now were it shame to wail. Alcmena, whom nature ought to move, her tears now do her fail. And thus as ill as was the son, the mother stood almost.
But at his burning, did he not call on the heavenly host, remembering Jove to hear his suit?
As one in deep despair he lay, and staring up, so rolled his eyes into the air, to spy if Jove looked down on him from any turret high. Then with his hands displayed to heaven, quoth he, whereso thou lie, and lookest down to see thy son, this same is he, whom one day eat with a night engendered hath to thee, if east and west, Scythia and every burning plot, that parched is with glowing glee, that Phoebus fire hot doth sing my praise. And if the earth fall satisfied with peace, if languishing and wailing words in every town do cease, if none their altars do imbrue with any guiltless gore, then Jove let my uncaged spirit have heaven forevermore. As for the eternal dens of death, they do not me detar, nor scowling Pluto's dungeon dark, but Jove I do abhor. Unto those ghastly goblins as a silly shade to go, sith I am he whose concrete hand gave them their overthrow. Withdraw these foggy clouds of night, display the glimpsing light, that Hercules, broiled with flying fames, gods may have in sight. And if thou do deny, O fire, the stars and heaven to me, to give me them against thy will, thou shalt constrained be. Glutting grief, to stop thy speech, the Stygian gulfs set ope, and let me die. But first declare within the heavenly cope, that thou acceptest me as thy son. This day it shall be wrought, that to be raised aloft to stars I may be worthy thought. Thou hast done little for me yet. It may be doubted well whether Jove did first beget his son, or damned him first to hell. And quoth he, let my stepdame see how well I can abide the scorching heat of burning brands. For fire then he cried, and saith to me, O Philoctetes, in haste upon me throw the burning logs. Why cakest thou? Dastard thou for slow, for fear to this wicked deed? O coward peasant slave, thou art too weak to bend my bow, unmeet my shafts to have. What ailest thou to look so pale? And as thou seest me lie, with cheerful look courageously do thou the fire ply. Behold me, wretch, that broil and burn, my father opes the skies, and unto me, son Hercules, come away, he cries. O Father Jove, quoth he, I come. With that I waxed pale, and towards him a burning beam with might and main I hail. But back from him the billets fly, and tumbling out they leap, and from the limbs of Hercules down falleth all the heap. But he encroacheth on the fire, as it from him doth shrink, that many mountains whole were set on fire, a man would think. No noise was heard, and all was hushed, but the fire did hiss in Hercules' glowing paunch, when as his liver burning is. If boisterous giant Typhus had amid this fire been thrown, these torments would have strained his tears and forced him sigh and groan. Or tough Enceladus that tossed a mountain on his back, but Hercules lifted up himself amid his fires all black. With smoke besmeared his corpse, half burnt in shivers, cube and floors. Down the throat his gasping breath, and flame at once he draws. Then to Alcmena he turned himself. O mother mine, quoth he, should ye so stand at Hercules' death? Should thou thus wail for me? And thus between the fire and smoke, upright and stiff he stands, and neither stoops nor leans away, but moves and stirs his hands, with all his lively gestures still, and thus he doth persuade his mother leave the languishing and mourning that she made, and did encourage all his men to increase the fire then, as though he were not burning, but would burn some other man. The people stood astonished, and scant they would believe that fire had any force on him, or that it did him grieve, because his cheerful look had such a majesty and grace, and never willed us move the fire, that he might burn apace. And now, when as he had thought he had endured pangs enough, and stoutly bode the brunt of death, the blocks he doth remove, that smothering lay, to make them burn, then downward doth he shove, and where the stewing heat did chiefly scorch and burn most hot, that way he thrusts his frying limbs, and thither hath he got, with steaming countenance unappalled, his mouth now doth he fill with burning coals. His comely beard then blazed about his cheeks, and now, when as the sparkling fire unto his visage seeks, the flame licked up his singed hair, and yet he did not wink, but open kept his staring eyes. What is this? I think. Alcmena come forth yonder, as a wife will wipe, forlorn, with sighs and sobs, and all her hairs befrounced, rent and torn, and bears the remnant in her lap, Hercules the Great.
But before we get to the question of ashes, this is the content we're here for: lengthy descriptions of horrible burning and death. That's the quality content that we're here for.
Yeah, that was that was going to be my comment. Okay, so here's the detailed description of really gross stuff. That's what. It's not bloody.
No,
but it's gross.
It's sizzly. It's very sizzly. There's hissing and spitting and yeah.
Eating cold and your beard's on fire. Okay.
Yeah. Anyone fancy a barbecue? No. Briony.
I just really love this idea of the glowing, burning liver. It's just so fascinating because it's complete fiction, and just the idea that it would be like visible from outside his body, that it's like glowing. I just think that's wicked.
Yeah, there's lots of it's sort of all of a massive, it feels like maybe some of those lines about puddings and things earlier were just to set us up for this particular moment, to just get us in the food cooking zone. There's all sorts of stuff in there, and it's actually I quite liked Philoctetes' stuff in the sense that it felt like a coherent speech that was delivering narrative and something to people who are in the room, rather than people who come on and make a big speech about something else. It felt coherent. It felt like it was telling us information. I followed it in a way that a lot of the other speeches you sort of drift in and out of a lot more. So it felt much more solid, much more dramatic in that sense. Any other thoughts before we go into the final sequence, Alan?
Another one where why use 5 words when 500 will do?
Well, again, I mean, there is excess, but there is a lot to pack in there, I suppose, and it does want to go into detail about Hercules' death, because that's what we're here for. Obviously, we're here to find out more about Hercules, because it sets the scene. I'm sure Alcmena is going to tell us more about this incident. She's entering with sighs and sobs and with the ashes by the looks of it. So as we complete the sequence, Alcmena and Philoctetes are still on stage.
Learn, lordings, learn to fear and dread the unwieldy fatal force. This little dust is all that's left of Hercules' hugy course. That boisterous giant is consumed unto these ashes small. O Titan, what a mighty mass is come to naught at all. Ay me, an aged woman's lap, all Hercules doth shroud. Her lap doth serve for him for a grave, and yet the champion proud, with all his lump fills not the room. Ay me, a burthen small, I feel of him to whom whole heaven were no burthen was at all. O Hercules, dear child, O son the season whilom was, that thou to Tartar pits and sluggish dens aloof didst pass, for to repass from deep of hell, when wilt thou come again? Not to purloin the spoils thereof, or bring from captive chain to life thy friendly Theseus. But when wilt thou return alone? Can flaming Phlegethon thy ghost in torments burn? Or can the mastiff dog of hell keep down thy woeful sprite? Where then might I come see thy soul and leave this loathed light? When shall I rap at Tartar gate? What jaws shall me devour? What death shall daunt me? Goest thou to hell and hast no power to come again? Alas, why do I wast? The day in tears waste, the day in tears and plaint. O wretched life, why dost thou last? Thou shouldest droop and faint, and loathe this dreary day. How can I bear to Jove again, another noble Hercules? What son may I obtain, so valiant to call me thus, Alcmena, mother mine? O happy spouse, Amphitrio, twice happy hast thou been in entering at the dens of death, and through the noble sun the devils at thy presence quake to see thee thither come. Though thou but forged father were to Hercules of late, whither shall old Beldam go whom many kings do hate? If any prince remain with bloody breast and murdering mind, then woe to me, if groaning babes be any left behind, that sorrow for their parents' deaths now for Hercules' sake, their malice let them wreak on me dire vengeance take. If any young Busiris be, I fear the Persian sore, will come and take me captive hence in chains for evermore. If any tyrant feed his horse with gubs of strangest flesh, now let his pampered jades unto my carcass fall afresh. Perhaps Dame Juno coveth on me to wreak her ire, and eon us of her burning breast will turn the flaming fire. Her wreckful hand doth loiter now, since Hercules is slain, and now to feel her spurning spite as harlot I remain. My valiant son is cause of this my womb shall barren be, lest I should bear another child as hardy as was he. O whither may Alcmena go? O whither shall she wend? What country or what kingdoms may my careful head defend? Where may I couch my wretched course, that everywhere am known, if I unto my native soil repair among mine own? Eurystheus is of Argus lord, thus woefully forlorn. I will to Thebes where I was wed, and Hercules was born, and where with Jove I did enjoy Dame Venus' dear delight. O blessed woman had I been, and in most happy plight, if Jove with flash of lightning gleams and blazing flakes of fire had smothered me as Semele was soused at her desire. Would God that Hercules, while he was a babe, had ripped been out of my womb, then wretchedly I should not this have seen the pangs and torments of my son, whose praise doth countervail even Jove. Then had I learned that death at length might him assail, and take him from my sight. O child, who will remember thee? For now unthankfulness is great in men of each degree, that for thy sake I do not know where entertained to be. The courtesy of the Cleones I will attempt and try, whom from the lion rescued he, and made the monster die. Or shall I to the Arcadians go, where thou didst slay the boar, where thy renown remained bright of great exploits before? The parlous serpent Hydra here was slain, there fell he dead, that with the flesh of slaughtered men his greedy horses fed. And yonder were the sinful brides, compelled to leave the sky, and tamed by the handy toil, now doth the lion fry, and belketh stifling fumes in heavens, while thou liest in thy grove. Oh, if mankind but any spark of thankful nature have, let all men preach to succour me, Alcmene, thy mother dear. What if among the Thracians I venture to appear, or on the banks of Heber flood, thy prowess everywhere hath succoured all these soils, for erst in Thrace thou did put down the fleshy maungers of the king, and put him from his crown. By slaughter of the savage prince, the people live in peace. Where didst thou deny thy help to make turmoiling cease? Unhappy mother, that I am a shrine where may I have to shroud thy corse, for all the world may strive about thy grave. What temple may be meet to shrine thy relics safe for aye, and hallowed bones? What nations unto the ghost shall pray? O noble son, what sepulchre, what hearse may serve for thee? The world itself through flying flame thy fatal tomb shall be. Who taketh here this piece from me, his ashes which I bear? Why loathe I them? Embrace his bones, keep still his ashes here. And they shall be a shield to thee, his dust that thee defend. To see his shadow, princes proud for fear shall stoop and bend.
Mother of noble Hercules, forbear your dreary plaint. His valiant death should not be with female tears attaint. Ye should not languish thus for him, nor count him wretched man in dying, who by noble mind prevent his destiny can. His chivalry forbiddeth us with tears him to bewail. The stately stomach doth not stoop, they sigh whose hearts do fail.
I'll moan no more. Behold, behold, most wretched mother, I have lost the shield of land and seas, where glittering Phoebe displays with whirling wheels in foamy gulfs and red and purple rays. The loss of many sons I may lament in him alone. Through him I lifted kings to crown, when crown myself had none, and never any mother lived that needed less to crave of gods than I. I asked naught while I my son might have. What could not Hercules' tender love like on me bestow? What God would once deny to grant, or what he held me fro? I was in my power to ask and have. If Jove would aught deny, my Hercules did bring to pass, I had it by and by. What mortal mother ever bare and lost so dear a son? As down the cheeks of Niobe the trilling tears did run, when of her dear and tender brats she wholly was bereaven, and did bewail with strained sighs her children 7 and 7. And yet might I compare this one, my Hercules, unto those, and I in him as much as she in all her imps I lose. The mothers that are mourning dames do lack one head and chief, and now Alcmena shall be she deprived of all relief. Cease, woeful mothers, cease, if that among you any are, constrained to shed your streaming tears by force of pensive care. Ye lady whom lamenting song of women formed rocks, give place unto my glutting grief, beat on with burning knocks. Ye hands upon my rival breast, alas, am I alone? Enough for such a funeral to languish and to moan, whom all the world shall shortly need, yet stretch thy feeble arms to thump upon thy sounding breast thy grief with doleful alarms. And in despite of all the gods' power, put thy woeful cry, and to receive thy flowing tears thy watery cheeks apply. Be well Alcmena's woeful state, the son of Jove bewail, whose birth did cause the dusky day in kindly course to fail. The east compacts 2 nights in one, lo, to a greater thing. Then glorious day the world hath lost, now let your sorrows ring. Yet people all whose lowering lords he drew to dens of death, their blades that reeked with guiltless gore he put into the sheath. Bestow on him your crystal tears, which he deserved well. Howl out, ye heavens, ye marble seas, and gulfs with groanings yell. O Crete, dear darling, unto Jove, for love of Hercules roar. Ye 100 cities, beat your arms, my son, forevermore is gone among the grisly ghosts and shimmering shades of hell. Lament for him, ye woeful wights, that here on earth do dwell.
And so with Hercules definitely dead... Oh no, hang on! The voice of Hercules can be heard.
Why, mother, wail you me as tossed in torments hot of hell, or plonged in pangs of death, sith I among the spheres do dwell? Forbear, forbear to moan for me, for virtue opened hath to me the passage to the stars, and set me in the path that guides to everlasting life.
Whence comes this dreadful sound? Whence roars this thundering voice that doth against mine ears rebound, and biddeth me to stint my tears? I know it, now I know, the darksome dungeons daunted are, and dens of lakes alow. O son, art thou returned to me from Stygian gulf again? And can thou twice of ugly death the conquest thus obtain? and brast the baleful prisons twice of glum and ghastly night, against the infernal furies forward, prevailing thus by might? May any scape from Acheron, or dost thou scape alone? Hath hell no power to hold thy sprite when breath from breast is gone? Or else hath Pluto bailed thee out for fear lest thou alone should cloyne his sceptre from his hand and pluck him from his throne? For I am sure I saw thee laid upon the burning trees, and from thy corpse the flames and sparks against the welkin flies, that sure thou wast to powder burnt, and feeble life was lost. But sure the deeps and pits of hell did not lock up thy ghost. Why were the devils afraid of thee? Why quaked Datis grim? And did thy noble ghost seem such a ghastly bug to him?
The dampy dykes of Cocytus could not keep me from light, nor Charon's fusty, musty barge transported hath my sprite. Now, mother, mourn no more. Once have I seen the hags of hell, and all the stern and steaming fiends in dungeons deep that dwell. That mortal mould I took of you, to naught the flames have fried. Heaven hath the substance that I took of Jove, in fire yours died. And therefore pause your plaintive tears, which parents used to shed, when wretchedly they wail their sons that dastardly are dead. Thus vulgar varlets weep. Lo, virtue hopes the stars to get, but fainting fear still dreams on earth, on death, from heaven where I am set. You hear my voice, Eurystheus now shall bide the deadly push. With chariot sway his cracked skull ye shall on sunder crush. Now must I hence advance my ghost up to the rolling skies. Once more I daunt the devils and do the goblins grim agrise.
But stay a while, my son. He fades and shrinketh from my sight. Advanced he is among the stars, doth this my charmed sprite dote in a trance, or do I dream that I have seen my son? A troubled mind can scant believe the things he seeth done. But now I see thou art a god possessing heaven for I see it sure, I will to Thebes thy triumphs to display.
Oh, virtue scapes the ghastly shades of hell, ye noble peers that shine in virtue bright. Dire destiny cannot constrain you dwell among the gloaming glades of ugly might, nor sink your fame in loathsome lakes of spite. But when death's day draws on the gasping hour, you purchased glory shall direct your right to find the passage to the heavenly bower. When flesh doth fall and breathing body dies, then fame, the child of virtue, doth arise. But sluttish slots that sleep their days in sloth, or give their golden age to loathsome lust, them and their names the wretched bury both. When as their bones shall shrined be in dust, the clay shall cover their carcasses forlorn, as though that caitiffs never had been born. But if that aught of memory they have, in the after age, it shall be filthy shame. The gnawing wombs torment not so engrave their rotten flesh, as tongues do tear their name, that daily killed to further mischief lives, to both the fruits that vice and virtue gives.
And thus ends the tale of Hercules dying. Hercules dying for most of the play, and even when he's dead, he still comes back. He's like the cat came back the very next day to return and give us some closing thoughts. Briony.
Well, I don't know. I feel like maybe we need an epilogue from Hercules just to clarify.
Yeah. You do get the impression he'd be in the foyer outside the theatre, just saying bye. No, yeah, I've got more. If you'd like to hear more, I've got some books, and I've actually got a book on tape as well of me talking about my death. If you'd like to hear more on that, then I'll come back with you home if you like. I'll tell you more. I've got loads more of this stuff. Yeah, there's a lot Hercules dying there. A lot of that. Yeah. Thoughts, Alan?
I've lost count. Was it 3 times or was it 4? We got basically the whole story of all of the 12 labours.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely mention them a few times. It's like, I'd hate to see his trophy cabinet, really, because you just know he'd just go on and on about it, and then he'd get the photos out. I mean, go, Lynn.
Yeah, but you were right about Philoctetes doesn't go to that well, really, so much. He just narrates the death. But yeah, otherwise, these long speeches go back over and over again to those, to the labors and the adventures and the snakes and all the times that he's escaped death. So it's really concerned with the past. And there's other stuff from the broader myth tradition. Don't we have some references to Philomel in the first or second act?
Yes, I think so.
So, yeah, the text seems very concerned to tie itself to the broader tradition, not just of Hercules, but sort of the myth cycles, even more generally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm now that we got a sense of the shape of the thing, I'm thinking, that it does have a certain shape that sort of works, and it's nice to dip into elements of this. It's just there's a lot of stuff, as we've ever noticed and noted, and yeah, I still think the central problem of actually we're never really introduced to care about Hercules before he starts dying is sort of an issue. I mean, he wasn't exactly charming in Act 1. Turned up and said some stuff, but I didn't care, and that's a slight problem, I suppose. Briony.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Like, if you're dying, then you want your life's deeds to be remembered, and I don't know, maybe they just thought it was a different way of framing the same stories, perhaps as like an epitaph to him. I don't know.
Yeah, it does have a sort of "this is your life" quality to it, doesn't it? I don't know if Eamon Andrews is going to turn up and hand him a big red book or anything.
I think there's only those of us of our generation who remember that, Rob.
I remember "This Is Your Life."
Yes,
Yeah,
to
but
be
not
fair, I
Eamon
never watched
Andrews.
Eamon Andrews doing it.
But it was someone else. It was someone famous. I can't remember who.
Aspel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even that was 30 years ago.
Shush. Anyway, moving on. Brian.
I was kind of joking, and I put something in the chat, but the more I think about it, I really do genuinely think you could really play this up and make it a dinner entertainment and match the courses to the play. We've even got fruit at the end there. Like, it's perfect. And if people knew it was a bit of silliness, and there's some gory descriptions, but as long as you didn't have like actual blood and try and fully recreate any of this stuff, I think it could be quite fun and tongue-in-cheek. I think people might enjoy that.
Okay, well, it's a practical suggestion. I like practical suggestions, and it's I've come up with similar sort of ideas that sometimes actually happen as well. So who knows? I like that. Yes, we're into the sort of territory of final thoughts. We've got a sense of the play overall. Beyond the obvious of just cutting it back and looking for the sort of the heart of the matter, trying to maybe look at it. It's less about Hercules' death, it's more about Hercules' life, looking at it as maybe as a way of getting us into stories about his adventures. Are there ways we can get into it? Some of the text is quite opaque when describing some of the past events, so I worry about narrative. Even if you're telling a story about something, you need to tell that story, and I'm not sure the text always does that. So lots of challenges about moving this forward. It's the longest of all the 10. I mean, all the others we can do in one session reasonably, I say reasonably comfortably, with a bit of squeezing, whereas this is a much longer text already. So lots of questions there. Elizabeth, any final thoughts from you?
It's a very interesting one. I'm not so sure what to say about it. There's so much of it, there was so much text, and I loved the way the text sounded. I loved a lot of the words that are kind of no longer in usage or may never have been in use. They're just kind of like neologisms coined for the piece. Were really, really beautiful. Some of the words like bequealing, I was just like, okay, it sounds like bequeathing, but it doesn't quite. But I like those. I love those words, and I think it had a range of really lovely words in it. And sometimes the verse really sang. Sometimes the verse really, really sang, and it really kind of lifted off the page. And at other times, it was kind of a bit dense and a bit flat. So it was a bit of a mixed bag. I did enjoy it. I do like our Seneca or Seneca translations. This is not the first Studley we've done, but I think on the scale of all of the ones we've done so far, I like some of the others a bit better.
Yeah, I think we're not here to play favourites, but I do think that Studley is not my favourite of the translators. I think we really liked Neville. Noose we rather enjoyed the other night, and Hayward fitfully. I think it ebbs and flows. I think Studley strives for effect and sometimes misses. I think that seems to be what's happening. But I could just have got them all blurred into one, and I'm talking nonsense. That is entirely possible. Briony, any final thoughts?
My last thought was fairly final thoughty, but just I think the rambly, repetitive nature of the script and how melodious it is at times would really lend itself to being like something like a dinner entertainment where people's attention wasn't fully on it, because some of it just falls on the ear really nicely. And then with all the repetition, if you miss a bit, he's probably going to mention it again. Did you miss the bit about the three-headed dog? Don't worry, that comes back. So yeah, I think it could work really nicely. And I agree with what Elizabeth said about just the language, the really interesting spellings and usage of words. And it's also kept its rhyme really, really well in a lot of places.
Yes, not to fight the idea of selective inattention, not trying to make the audience sit there and focus on every word, because it's just so dense that doing that will actually just exhaust you, which is what tends to happen. So actually to encourage people, tune out, it's fine, try the veal. That is... I don't know why I selected such politically incorrect meat, but never mind. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just one brief thing. I agree with you, Rob, that the on the level of language, it's hit and miss. There are times when the imagery is beautiful and the word choices are quite effective, and then there are times when it's just a little more clunky. Oh well, I was like I can criticize, like I'm a poet. But the thought that's been rolling around in my head a little bit yesterday and very much today is that it strikes me how interested this iteration of the story is interested in what to do with women and its discomfort with women. That we all know that Juno or Hera hated her husband's girlfriends and hated his illegitimate children, and that she had a particular resentment for Hercules. But it comes up in like every single speech. I mean, how many times do we say stepdame in this text? A lot. And Daenerys is really quite ambiguous. She wants to kill him, but then no, I'll give him this magic shirt instead. It's not really even clear if she's really ignorant of what that shirt is going to do. And then his mother, who's basically, positively portrayed. I'm thinking, oh well, maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm thinking that like this hostility or fear of women is something that I'm over reading that. But then towards the end, Alcmena comes on with her son's ashes in her lap. So the womb is a place of death. Like, okay, maybe I'm not wrong. So yeah, that's just something that really stood out to me today, is this troubled gender relations and the play's framing of women as always associated with harm and death and hostility, and as opposed to virtue, which is a word whose root means manly, being what saves Hercules in the end. So I really feel like there's this sort of undercurrent of very troubling gender politics.
I mean, that keys in a different way to, actually, we were looking at Octavia the last night in the previous session. I don't know what order they'll come out in, by the way, so don't necessarily go backwards looking for it. But Angela McShane on that session was talking about how the women's roles within that text were very muted and ultimately inert and inactive and always reactive to what everybody else is doing, and that constant framing narrative that we've had in a lot of texts as well, and that is one of those background issues that we're always having to deal with and look at what we do with that. That raises all sorts of questions about where we go with some of these texts going forward, because they are issues that need to be addressed, and into what we do with them. Because if we're breathing new life into them, we have to decide what life we're breathing into them. Alan, any final thoughts?
Too many notes, Mr. Mozart.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you strip out the duplications, you could probably lose about a third to half the script. There are some beautiful bits of language in there, but in terms of actually moving the plot forward, there's an awful lot of wading through treacle.
Yeah. So in that sense, we've got sort of two options here. Is either that we go for a fairly radical trim down, or we go large but in a context whereby the audience is allowed to drift. And that seems like two valid options going forward. Any additional thoughts before I close the session? No, right. Well, we've got two more at the time of recording. Two more Senecas, actual pucker Senecas as well, in translation to go from the 10 tragedies translated in the early years of Elizabeth. So we're nearly at the end of our Senecan journey, at least for this phase of the activity. All that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Might my truncheon punch her puddings once.